All right, thank you for bearing with us. We have a special guest, as I said today, John Stossel. And by the way, I just have to say to John Stossel, he came and spoke last night at the University of Chicago, and we went and had dinner with him afterwards. He is a man on the go, and we thank him for taking time and actually, I know he was busy doing things today, and he's taking time out of his schedule to have a short interview with us. And he took time last night to talk with the college Republicans. I know we played the game 20 questions with him, probably just going down, trying just to gain some wisdom from him. But you know him. It's John Stossel, host of ABC. He's an anchor for ABC's new magazine 2020. He joined 2020 in 1981. He ran his first special, Are We Scaring Ourselves to Death? And he's also done a lot of research and specials into gender differences, the mechanics of mating, the science behind happiness, the trouble with lawyers, junk science, freeloaders, greed, offering a positive perspective on a lightened self-interest. His specials have been rated consistently among the highest in news, and the Dallas Morning News, for example, call him the quote, the most consistently thought-provoking TV reporter of our time. He really doesn't need any introduction. He's done some amazing work. He inspires people in the libertarian and the conservative branch to look at him and say, wow, you're actually making it in the mess that is biased media today. And I think a lot of, oh, come on, it is. And I think a lot of leftists at the same time just despise him, and he's surprised by this, and I'm sure he'll probably talk about this because he feels that he's pretty open on many social matters. With that said, Mr. Stossel, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing pretty well. Happy to be back in New York.
Awesome. And by the way, Mr. Stossel, we recommend you pick up Mr. Stossel's book. He's written a few books. His latest one is Myth, Lies, and Downright Stupidity. You can get it at a bookstore near you. To start things off, Mr. Stossel, a lot of individuals know your work. A lot of individuals recognize your unique contrarian style. A lot of individuals either embrace or disdain your libertarian style. However, many individuals do not know your political roots, your previous days of being a big government supporter, your previous days of attacking businesses, and your transition through reporting and becoming a lone voice for reason, rationality, and what is right. Tell us about those days, sir.
The early days
right,
when I was
right.
bashing business?
Yes. When you transitioned, what made you transition over to be more of a libertarian bent reporter?
Because I saw all those government rules I was calling for weren't working, that they had all these unintended consequences. Once we took a TV to a bunch of TV repair shops, and it just had a loose tube, and some of the shops said, hey, it just has a loose tube, and others pretended to do a lot of work and charged us a lot of money. Well, I thought that was an interesting TV piece. And after I aired it, politicians would call up and say, what a great piece, and we should take action on this. And this flatters the reporter. Gee, I'm important. The politicians are listening to me. And because of this, they created a Department of Consumer Affairs in Oregon, and they were going to license the TV repair shops. And I thought this was great. And then I watched what happened. And what happens is we tend to like licensing. We license drivers and dogs, but it's just another layer of bureaucracy. And the bureaucrats would sit on their butts. They didn't do stings like I did. They just had people come in and fill out forms. The poor people, or the immigrants who didn't understand the system, they couldn't afford lawyers who could help explain it to them. It took more time for everybody, and that just raised prices for TV repairs. And the cheaters were still going to cheat, and still do cheat. You can't police everything, and the attempts to do it just create more rules, more little spider web of little rules that takes away our freedom and our money.
Yeah, but on that hand, though, don't you think it's good that we have, what other alternatives would you propose? I mean, we need regulation to make sure that we don't go back to sort of the days of the jungle where we have unregulated food and people can put all sorts of things in our food. Or, I certainly would support giving people driver's license. We do need regulation in our life to ensure that most people are doing what they ought to do. And wouldn't you say that regulation, for the most part, works to some extent? I mean, we don't have the same levels of we do have a lot more levels of consumer protection now than we used to. We have the Department of Consumer Affairs, the FDA, and don't you think most of these places are doing their job?
No. Yes, they're doing their job poorly. They're doing something. They occasionally catch a bad guy. But I don't accept your premise. I don't think we need this regulation because market competition does it better. And this is not intuitive. It took me many years to see it. But just the competition between let's say you're worried about the safety of meat, the competition between your A&P and your Safeway, or Oscar Mayer and some other meat packager. They know that if they have a reputation for not having clean meat, they'll go out of business. It won't take more than one or two cases, and that polices us better than government.
Well, I mean, I completely agree with you, and you probably also, you can also say that consumer reporters like Mr. Stossel help put the accountability onto the businesses. And one of the points, though, that I'd like to raise, which I think a liberal leftist would probably raise, in your book Myth, Lies, and Downright Stupidity, one of the myths you dispel is titled "Are Protesters Wrong About Sweatshops?" You bring up economic support for your opinion that sweat is good. Sweat is what people in the developing world do all the time. Sweat is what has brought economically desolate countries out of the muck and mire due to the blessings of capitalism. You interviewed individuals in Kenya, for example, that said they wish there would be more sweatshops because of higher pay and better conditions compared to traditional work. I agree with your point, but a leftist could probably say there's an issue of accountability here. In a free market, you held consumer reporting and the demands of the consumer is keys to accountability. In the third world, though, businesses can compete. A big government supporter might say that a lot of these third world countries don't have a developed network of consumer reporting. They don't have a free market of ideas and speech to a cost injustice done by the businesses taking advantage of the labor force. Political freedom is a distant possibility. I mean, I know where I would stand based on the good old Milton Friedman, but what are your thoughts on this? They'd say they don't have those safeguards that a free, truly free society has, so we should take a stand against sweatshop injustice.
Well, but the taking the stand is ridiculous. It would be nice if they had all those institutions, but every country needs to move up from the bottom where they may be now. And the way Korea, South Korea, and Taiwan, and Hong Kong, and all the hugely successful countries of East Asia that have gone from third world poverty to roughly European levels of wealth, the way they did it was step by step with what we arrogantly call sweatshops. As long as they don't have forced labor, what's most important is to maintain the distinction between voluntary and force. If they don't have forced labor, then all those people working in what we call sweatshops were people whose other alternatives were worse. And maybe they're only making $1 a week, but what that meant is before they were making 50 cents a week or nothing. And awful as those conditions are, they're better than what they had before. And if that horrible sweatshop thrives, if idiot American college students don't drive it out of business through silly UN rules, then it will grow, and there'll be more demand for workers, and the guy will leave that sweatshop because another sweatshop has air conditioning or nicer bathrooms or pays $1.10. And through that process, millions of people can lift themselves out of poverty just the way America created itself. But if we interfere with that process, we kill opportunity.